You have not loved anything without being its slave. Now you may not consider yourself your slave because love has an ability to disguise things. You think it's all done out of love. Love makes things easier. If that love is for the wrong thing, then it will be very detrimental. If the love is for a good thing, then it will facilitate your worship. If you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your studies, your worship, our conduct, our dressing and everything, despite any difficulty in front of us, will become easy. Because that love is so powerful. That the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set this feeling, this emotion that we have in this world of love, if your love is misplaced, then it's going to be extremely harmful. And look what love has done to people. Look what people do for love. They kill for love. They steal for love. They do all sorts of things for love. And yet, with love, people have excelled. The awliya did not become close to Allah and awliya without love. Awliya means that they are taken care of by Allah because they have become friends with Allah. They've attained hub of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if your love is misplaced for the wrong things in this world, unfortunately as today we have, because we are so confronted with various articles that basically, especially living in a big city, with everything that's so freely available in front of us, that seeks to distract us, then it's so difficult to purify our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because we have so much competition. There's too much competition in the world today. I remember once we were discussing, there was a clergy association we had in Santa Barbara in America when I was an Imam there, which the priests and a few rabbis, and I was the only Imam in the area. So once they were saying, we've got lots of churches in the area. So I was just asking how many people come to church. So he's saying, okay, this many people. He said, we've got too much competition here. I said, what's the competition? Other churches? No, we've got the beach, we've got the mountains, the beautiful weather. Instead of coming on a Sunday to church, they go out to do these things. But look at our life as well. I'm sure everybody here who's listening wants to be so connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They want to have the same experiences as we hear of the pious and righteous people of the past. When you hear that, you think, I wish I could be like that. I wish I could just get away from it all. But every day, as soon as we go outside, this is like a safe sanctuary. This is like a safe sanctuary. As soon as you go outside, we're bombarded with various different things, the good and the bad. And you have to make a decision. And the thing is that you've started studying here, you've started, mashallah, this path of knowledge, path of gaining closeness to Allah. Remember, don't see this path as a path of knowledge only. Because knowledge without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is useless. So don't see this, I'm going to be an alim, a great alim. Always see yourself as wanting to become a lover of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I want to get this, and I can get this through this knowledge. This is what I'm learning for. If we try to instill this love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your knowledge, your seeking, all the difficulties in that way, you may have to be missing weddings and parties and all these other things that your families may be having. And this is one of the fitnas of studying outside of a madrasa, or outside of a full-time madrasa. Because we still have to deal with our external. You may be working in the daytime, you may be studying in the daytime. There are so many things that you're going to have to be sacrificing. Insha'Allah, if we create the love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of these things will become easy. All of these things will become easy. I don't like to say this, but out of all of my brothers and my cousins who are maybe between 10 or so years younger than me, I only made it to my one brother's wedding. Because in all the other ones, my two other brothers and my sister, I was out of the country studying. I couldn't be there. Right? It was just not possible to come back for the wedding. Do you understand? I'm not bragging about it. I'm not necessarily proud of it. But I'm just saying that there are sacrifices you will have to make for the sake of Allah. And these sacrifices become easy when you begin to love something. That's exactly what he's saying. You have not loved anything without being its slave. And those of you who are starting off, right, lots of people start. Unfortunately, not everybody who starts finishes. That's the sad thing. This is an experience this is something you will see from experience. If 20 people start, first year of the course, the second year will not have those same 20 people necessarily. There will be less. Few people will drop out. They might find it difficult. They may find it too challenging. They may find it too much of a sacrifice. I have a person I know very closely who came to the madrasa, started studying, then he felt a bit like he doesn't want to study. The shaitan started coming. And he said, I want to leave. So his father said, okay, fine, if you want to leave, just leave. And now he regrets it today after 20 years, 25 years. He said, I was just saying that because it was getting a bit difficult. But if my father had encouraged me and said, no, given me some incentive, I would have carried on. It wasn't that bad. Now there's no way I can go back. So develop the love. When you have the love, then wearing the clothing will become easy. Walking the walk will become easy. Everything related to it will become easy. Then there's no need for you to give any kind of sacrifice afterwards, any other sacrifice. Allah will then reward you afterwards. Those who give sacrifice for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah gives them afterwards in amazing ways. He'll give you your happiness. Seek happiness through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not through other means, because in every other mean, the happiness will be short-lived and you'll have to find more happiness. So then he says, you have not loved anything without being its slave, but he does not want you to be somebody else's slave. So love him and become his slave, because you are his slave. Whether you love it or not, that's the reality. You may love something else and become their slave, whereas you're not their slave. Whereas you are a slave of Allah, but you don't realize that. So become a true slave by loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When man loves on this earth anything besides Allah, Shaykh Abdullah Gango, he says, he becomes its slave because of the deep relationship that develops. This is human psyche, this is the way we work. You need to love somebody, you start thinking about them, you start talking about them, you start going on about them, you start WhatsApping about them, you start tweeting about them, you start, your pictures and everything. You can see what a person loves. Just check their Twitter profile. That's what they love. Because in Twitter you have how many words to mention your profile? Right, a certain number of words. You're obviously going to choose that which you think is very important to you, unless it's a strategic wording for some other business purposes, right? So I just don't understand how profiles, right? Some guy who's a religious guy is, his profile says, supporter of Manchester United. It's like, you just wasted all of those words. What's your problem? Is that your life? Is that your love? Is that what you're a slave to? Look, I can understand supporting a team maybe, but you've got, this many words, like a limited number of words, and you have to tell the world, this is what I'm a supporter about, as though they care. Maybe some other few Manchester supporters might care about you, but the rest of the world who don't care about these things, they're going to care about this. Is this your limited world? Can you see how we make the insignificant so significant in our life? And that's just an example, by the way. I've got nothing against Manchester United. But what I'm saying, that's just an example of other things we can do in the same way. And subhanAllah, we have to be really careful, evaluate what our life is about. Because of the deep relationship that develops, the object of love can be love of wealth, enslaving love of spouses and children. Separation from such an object of love produces grief, withdrawal symptoms. Right? This then is the meaning of the enslavement to the object of one's love. That's how you become a slave without realizing you're a slave. This is how the modern world works. They make you a slave without you realizing it. They just show you the good features of something, and the way to develop love for something is by understanding the qualities and the virtues of something. That's what it is. That's what you call developing intellectual love. One is you just fall in love. There's love in Arabic is al-hub. There's al-hub al-tabi'i, fitri, which means just natural love. You just can't help it. You just love that thing. Right? Then there's al-hub al-aqli, which means intellectual love, which, for example, you don't like something, but then you learn the virtues of it and you see the benefits of it, so you start liking it because of that, but you don't have a natural love for that thing. And the world is just competing with us. It's competing with each other to gain the attraction of their love. That's why you have lovers of the iPhone who are willing to stand for hours on end, all night long, in the rain, to get the first phone off the shelf. I mean, they could have just waited a week. But no, they have to get it first. Bragging rights, number of things that associated with it. So, this is the meaning of enslavement to the object of one's love. It should, however, be understood that the love of worldly objects that is detestable is such a love that induces the slave to ignore the sacred law, where the lover devotes himself to the object of love, even if the love leads to the violation of the law. If priority is accorded to the sacred law, thus keeping the love subservient, then the natural love one has for a certain matter, such as children or relatives, is not abominable. It's not harmful. In fact, this love is part of the prophetic practice, the sunnah in such instances. That's why Maulana Tanwi, he says that, if you, this is getting a bit more complicated, but if you have to love Allah more than anything else, then how would you love your mother? How would you love your children? How would you love your spouse? So he's saying that because Allah has told us to love all of these things, we love them for the sake of Allah. And anybody who gains a true understanding of the love of Allah, they will actually be better lovers in the general sense of the word of all of these things than a person who just loves them only and not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a very theoretical thing to say, but it needs to be understood through practice to be really able to appreciate it. So the main lesson for today, basically, out of all of this, is that we have a lot of competing things out there that try to attract us and take our attention, and we don't have the time for all of that. We take what's necessary, we take what's needed, we take what our needs are, but we focus on trying to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we can develop love for Him by reading more the Quran and the Hadith and really appreciating what we're reading, the more we'll get to know Him, the more we'll understand about our love. And that will make further learning more easier, inshallah. That's what's most important, to make things easy for us, that this path becomes more easy for us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us His love. That's why we should always do this one dua. Allahumma rzuqna hubbak wa hubba man yanfa'una hubbuhu indak. Allahumma rzuqna hubbak, which means, oh Allah, grant us your love. Wa hubba man yanfa'una hubbuhu indak. And grant us the love of those whose love benefits us in your cause. Which means you get good company. Right? You're only then inclined to good company. You'll only love things and those people who benefit you in the court of Allah, and not those who will waste your time. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us that.